name is Anthony Argento, and I'm in Business Speech Class 1311. Did you know that there's roughly 14,300 Starbucks in America, and that about half of the American adults consume roughly 300 milligrams of caffeine per day? Nowadays, caffeine can be found at any gas station and nearly any retail store. I would like to discuss or show my audience why there's an increase in supply and demand of caffeine-related products in America. Plan on doing this by discussing a brief history and background on caffeine, as well as the positive and negative effects that take place when it's consumed, and the trend in consumption on how caffeine is being consumed. So, caffeine is found in over 60 different plants and over 60 different plants, and it's such as tea leaves, cocoa beans, and most notably coffee beans. Caffeine's medicinal and stimulative effects have been known about since the beginning of time, but it wasn't until 1819 when caffeine was first discovered and isolated in a lab by Dr. Ferdinand Rush. And at the turn of the 20th century, a company named Monsanto started producing caffeine for Coca-Cola. And during the World War II time period, they pledged that they would sell Coca-Cola products to all their soldiers for 5 cents each, and this caused the demand of caffeine to go through the roof. After this, Monsanto got a hold on synthetic. After this, during the same time period in World War II, Nazi German scientists invented synthetic caffeine, which most people don't know that there's a difference between the two. And it wasn't until the mid-1950s until synthetic caffeine was brought over to America, and companies like Monsanto started mass producing it. So the supply of caffeine was now able to be met with a high demand. And later on in the years, Monsanto, along with other big American companies, moved their synthetic caffeine production plants to China, and little's known about the facilities in China. The European Directorate of Medicines and Healthcare said that they stopped dealing with 4 out of the 5 largest pharmaceutical companies in China, because they tried to send an inspection team out there to see what they were going on about and see if they were being clean with their products, but they were denied access to going to the places, so the European Union stopped dealing with 4 of the 5 largest companies. However, America still deals with these 4 companies, and they don't really care too much. So what does caffeine do? Caffeine stimulates the central nervous system. It's a psychoactive drug, and it binds to the adenosine receptors. So caffeine takes about 45 minutes to enter the bloodstream, and when caffeine when it binds to the adenosine receptors, it produces feelings of stimulant energy, and turns the signal off of feeling tiredness. So caffeine takes about 4 to 4.5 hours of half-life. So the effects of it are most noticed through that time. But it takes up to 8 to 12 hours for caffeine to leave the body fully, depending on the person. So that's why a lot of researchers recommend that you should avoid caffeine up to 7 hours before you go to sleep at night. Some of the positive effects of caffeine would be that it provides feelings of alertness, increased cognitive function, and reduces inflammation. The negative effects about caffeine would be that it could cause irritation, dehydration, lack of sleep, and in the worst cases, insomnia, and most oftentimes it increases your blood pressure, but usually it's not too bad. Another positive thing about caffeine, real quick, is that caffeine is used in some pharmaceutical drugs, even though it's not recommended to be mixed with most drugs. But doctors like to mix caffeine with pain relievers because they say that it increases the effects of them by about 40%. The traditional way of consumption of how caffeine is starting to be consumed is starting to change from coffee to energy drinks, and when consuming energy drinks, it takes about the side effects and withdrawals of consuming energy drinks are enhanced a lot more than just regular products, and they're targeted towards kids and adolescents and adults that are in their youth. From 2013 to 2018, there's an increase in 29.8% of energy drink sales revenues in the U.S. from $9.6 billion to $13.5 billion. So there's been a noticeable change in the last 5 years, but not including 2019. More caffeine usually means more caffeine in your body usually means more caffeine for more energy usually means more problems. So your body has natural energy levels that are needed and met whenever you go to sleep. And if caffeine cuts into your sleep time, then you're most likely to not balance out your normal energy levels. Caffeine has been used since the beginning of time. So what I would the accessibility of caffeine makes it easier to consume higher amounts. So I wouldn't look at the label and see if it's like too much for you or how much you've had in a day. But I'd recommend that you just go off how your body feels or how your body responds when you consume caffeine. Because like with all things in life, including caffeine, it's enjoyed best when it's in moderation. Thank you.
Thank you.